Her take on self-scripts. Super intriguing. So today, let's do a deep dive into that. Figure out what it's all about and how it's different from, just thinking happy thoughts. What do you think?
Absolutely. It's a topic that's right up my alley. When we talk about rescripting reality, Dr. Adams' work on self scripts really stands out. It's not just about, like you said, thinking positive, it gets into the nitty gritty of how we can shift those deeply ingrained thought patterns.
Okay, so for anyone listening who might be thinking, hold on, aren't self-scripts just affirmations with a fancy name? What would you say? Is there really a difference?
At first glance, they might seem similar, but think of it this way. An affirmation is like a quick snapshot, a I am strong kind of statement, right? Good for a quick boost. But a self-script, that's more like a movie scene playing out. It's not shying away from the complex reality. It's more like, okay, I'm about to give this presentation, and yeah, I'm nervous, I've prepped for this, I know my stuff, I'm going to nail this presentation. It acknowledges the challenge head on, but focuses on action. You're not just claiming a feeling, you're outlining the steps to get there.
I see. It's way more concrete and proactive, right? And this connects back to Dr. Adams' background in cognitive behavioral therapy, doesn't it? It's about creating lasting change, not just a temporary mood lift.
Exactly. CDT is all about understanding the link between our thoughts, feelings, and behaviors. And self-scripts fit right into that. It's about actively shaping that internal dialogue to something more realistic and geared towards positive change.
So instead of just wishing to be more confident, we're basically giving ourselves the script, like an actor rehearsing lines, but the role is our best selves facing real-life situations.
That is a fantastic analogy. And the truly mind-blowing part, this is where it gets into neuroplasticity, the brain's ability to rewire itself based on what we feed it. So every time we repeat a thought, good or bad, those pathways get stronger. Self-scripts let us take control and consciously choose which paths we want to pave.
Okay, that is both empowering and, if I'm honest, kind of intimidating. If we have that much power over our own minds, where do we even begin?
Well, Dr. Adams goes deep into different techniques, but a lot of it boils down to mindfulness.
Mindfulness, it's everywhere these days, but I feel like everyone interprets it differently. How would you define it in this context?
In the simplest terms, it's about noticing your thoughts and feelings as they come up without judgment, like hitting the pause button on that mental ticker tape. We're not aiming for total silence in our minds, but observation.
So recognizing that not every thought that pops up is a truth we have to obey, especially those pesky inner critic ones.
Exactly. Mindfulness helps us create a little space between us and our thoughts, giving us the power to choose which ones are helpful and which ones we can let go of.
It's about taking the reins, becoming the director of that mental movie, instead of letting it play on autopilot. But how do we get down to actually writing these self-scripts? Is it as simple as grabbing a notepad and jotting down some affirmations?
It's a bit more nuanced than that. Remember, the goal here is to acknowledge those challenges and create a roadmap for action. It's about scripting a scene, not just designing a motivational poster.
So less I am strong
Yeah.
and more, you know what, I might be feeling overwhelmed right now, but I'm going to tackle this one step at a time.
Exactly. It's about creating a story that feels real to you. One that includes growth and resilience, yeah, but also those plot twists and challenges that are just part of life.
Okay, now you've really got me hooked. Yeah. So where do we even start with crafting these self-scripts? What are the actual steps?
Well, Dr. Adams talks about a few key steps, and one of the first ones is understanding those cognitive distortions that fuel our negative self-talk.
Cognitive distortions. Okay, we need to break that down. What are they and how do they trip us up?
Think of them as thinking traps, like little mental shortcuts our brains take that lead to these inaccurate interpretations of ourselves and situations. It's like looking into a funhouse mirror,
Yeah.
distorting our reflections so we see flaws that might not even be there.
So it's not that we're inherently flawed, it's that our brains are sometimes playing tricks on us. Okay, that's both frustrating and kind of reassuring. How do we stop our minds from doing this?
And that's where self-awareness and something called cognitive restructuring come into play. By learning to spot these distortions, we can challenge those thoughts and reframe them in a more realistic light.
Okay, so what kind of distortions are we talking about? Give me an example.
Well, one common one is all or nothing thinking. It's that tendency to see things in black and white with no middle ground, like, I messed up that presentation, so I'm a complete failure.
Oof, I know that one all too well. One misstep and my inner critic goes straight to, see, you're a fraud. How do we combat that kind of extreme thinking?
A more balanced and helpful self-script might sound something like, okay, that presentation didn't go exactly as planned, but see how I can learn from this and improve for next time. It acknowledges the mistake without letting it define your entire worth.
Right. It's about shifting from I'm a failure to I made a mistake, and that's okay. I'm capable of learning and growing. It's still honest, but way more constructive, less dramatic.
Precisely. And the amazing thing is, over time, those compassionate self-scripts actually begin to rewire those neural pathways, making us more resilient and confident in the face of challenges.
I can definitely see myself falling into some of these thinking traps. What other distortions should we keep on our radar?
Another big one is what we call mind reading. That's when we assume we know what other people are thinking, usually negatively, without any real evidence to support it. This can be a breeding ground for self-doubt and insecurity, especially in relationships.
They probably think I'm boring. They must be judging my outfit. Ugh, the assumptions. We've all been there. It's like these mental leaps that can send us spiraling.
And here's the thing. They can become self-fulfilling prophecies. If we go into interactions already believing others dislike us, we might unconsciously act in ways that confirm our own biases.
So with mind reading, it's all about challenging those assumptions and looking for evidence to the contrary, instead of jumping to conclusions.
Absolutely. Instead of assuming you know what others are thinking, try approaching interactions with genuine curiosity and openness. Stick to the observable facts, not your interpretations of them.
More, what did they actually say or do? And less, what did their tone of voice really mean? Focusing on the concrete details.
Exactly. And if those negative assumptions keep popping up, that's where those compassionate self-scripts come in. You don't have to have it all figured out. It's perfectly okay to ask for clarification.
Sometimes just saying, hey, I want to make sure I understand, could you clarify what you meant, can work wonders.
Yeah, right.
Absolutely. That open communication can be so powerful. Not only does it help to clear up any misunderstandings, but it also strengthens those relationships.
Okay, so we've talked about all or nothing thinking and mind reading. What other cognitive distortions should we be aware of?
Another big one is what we call catastrophizing. That's when our minds jump to the worst case scenario, even if it's highly unlikely. And often, that kind of thinking just creates unnecessary anxiety and prevents us from taking risks or going after the things we want.
Oh, tell me about it. What if I totally bomb this interview and never find another job? The what-if game is dangerous.
It really is. And while it's important to be realistic and acknowledge potential challenges, catastrophizing often blows things out of proportion, right? It creates all this unnecessary stress and anxiety.
So how do we deal with that inner catastrophize? Do we just force ourselves to be super optimistic?
Yeah.
Because that feels kind of fake.
Yeah, no, it's not about forcing unrealistic positivity. It's about finding that balance,
Yeah.
acknowledging those potential challenges, but then shifting your focus to what you can control. Instead of getting stuck in what if land, try asking yourself, okay, what's the most likely outcome here? And what steps can I take to be prepared?
Okay, so practical steps, I like it.
Yeah.
It's not about denying that challenges exist, but reframing them as things we can manage, not these big scary monsters we can't escape.
Exactly. Often, just breaking a seemingly overwhelming situation down into smaller, more manageable steps can make a huge difference in reducing that anxiety and boosting our confidence.
It's like that saying, how do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. Suddenly it feels much less daunting.
I love that. And those smaller steps, those become the building blocks of our self-scripts. So we've talked about identifying those cognitive distortions as a starting point. But Dr. Adams talks about another key element in crafting those empowering self-scripts, and that's identifying our core values.
Core values, those fundamental beliefs that shape how we make decisions, how we act. How do those tie into this whole self-talk thing?
Think of your core values as the compass that guides your internal dialogue. When the self-scripts we create are aligned with those values, they just resonate more deeply, They have more power to motivate real, lasting change.
So it's not just about positive self-talk for the sake of it. It's about making sure it's authentic, that it reflects who we are at our core.
Exactly. It needs to feel true to you. Let's say, for example, one of your core values is growth. A self-script aligned with that might be, I am committed to continuous learning and development even when it's challenging. You see how that works?
I do. It's about crafting self-talk that's in line with our own personal true north, not just what sounds good on a motivational poster.
Precisely. And once we have those values-based self-scripts in place, well, they become the foundation for setting those realistic, meaningful goals.
Okay, so we've tackled those cognitive distortions, identified our core values. Now it's goal-setting time. But what kind of goals are we talking about here? Is it anything goes?
Well, not exactly. Dr. Adams emphasizes the importance of setting goals that are both challenging and attainable, always keeping those core values in mind. It's about finding that sweet spot, right? Pushing ourselves outside our comfort zones, but also setting ourselves up for success, not for disappointment.